And what a privilege it really is to be back with you again. And thank you for having me. And I so enjoy the worship. Thank you. Wow. I want to read something with you, and it's from Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30. So it's Matthew 11, from verse 28 till 30. And it says, "Come to me, all you will labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I will leave my notes over there, so I'm not going to use them. You're just going to see how things are going. But what you saw this video is what's happening in Southern Africa at the moment. But I would like to take you back a few years. In fact, about maybe 350 years or something like that. It's just to give you a history of how did we get here, how did it happen, how did missions go into, how did it get to Africa. And missions is exciting, it is a challenge, it is beautiful, it is amazing, and but missions is how do I say that? It is so. It is enriching the church, and it is changing the world. And so it was 350 years ago, a bit more, that a certain Jan van Riebeek from Holland, that he went all the way sailing to South Africa, to the Cape of the Good Hope. And once he got over there, he actually knelt down and he prayed. He said a prayer, and the prayer is well known. And he prayed that somehow the gospel will settle in Africa, and that from the Cape of the Good Hope, the gospel will spread into Africa. That's how it started. And that prayer is still being prayed today as well. Then there was a young man, much later, he was Robert Moffat. He was about 21 years old when he came to Africa, to a place, and he said he built a mission house, a mission post in a place called Kuruman, and that is just below not Botswana. He was for 50 years, he was in Africa. In fact, Robert Moffat was the first one who translated the Bible into an African language. And this year, just a few months ago, it was exactly 200 years ago that it happened. And it was, so we still remembered, they had a whole celebration that it happened, that 200 years ago, the first African Bible was translated. It was by Robert Moffat. Now, Robert Moffat, for 50 years he was in Africa, but once he went on furlough, he came back to Scotland and or to England, and he was speaking in a church, and the church afterwards had they had a lunch, and at lunch he was speaking to a young man about Africa, and this young man thought, "Yeah, this is it. I need to go to Africa. This is my place. Here I need to go." Now, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I came from Africa. They picked me up at 9 o'clock from my home. Went to the airport in Swaziland, to Johannesburg, back to Amsterdam. Within 24 hours, I was in Amsterdam. But that time, this man, he sailed for 3 months by boat, And then 4 months by wagon and oxes, he drove up to Kuruman. So it took him 7 months to get to this place. His name was David Livingstone. And David Livingstone, once he got to Kuruman, he went into Africa. He went to all places, always came back again to Kuruman, and then he went out again. He just had that urge to go out. And he once he came back and he actually married the daughter from Robert Moffat, Mary, and but the conditions were harsh. It was called, Africa was called the Dark Continent. The problems, the challenges they had, there was malaria, and I think David Livingstone, if I'm right, he had about at least 60 attacks of, fever attacks. The conditions were harsh. Actually, Mary, his wife, died when she was 40 years old. His latest daughter, Elizabeth, died as well. The conditions were just very, very difficult. I mean, it was, just to say the least, for everyone in Africa. Then, and David Livingstone, he was more sick than he was ever healthy. And once he was, and he's been all over the place, all over Africa. He, in fact, he said, one of his last words were, you know, I paved the way for you to come into Africa. The gospel is open. You are there. Will you, the work what I have begun, will you continue to that? And I will leave that to you. And one night he went to bed. He was so sick, and I think somewhere in the middle of the night, he got out of bed, knelt at his bed, and that's how his workers, how they found him in the morning, and the word came that David Livingstone died. And then finally the word came to this part of the world. There was a young girl, and she heard that David Livingstone died, and she wondered, she said, maybe I should become a missionary to Africa. Well, I'm not David Livingstone, but you know, the little what I have, the little what I can do, maybe the Lord can use me, and I will be willing to go. And her name was Mary Slessor, and she, but yeah, you know, what is it? You've got the dangers of the jungle. How is it to work and to live in a foreign country? You know, so many questions were there. And the conditions were so bad. It was indeed, again, Africa was the continent of darkness. It was very, very difficult. And you know, that even the lifespan, the life expectancy of a missionary in Africa at that time was only 8 years. And that was in the east, but in the west it was only 2 years. Many people, they died within a few months when they were there. The conditions were so harsh, and somehow there was one of those captains. You know, when they were sailing to Africa, you had one of those captains who said to them, "You know, you're only going to die in Africa. You know, I mean, why would you go?" And there was this missionary, and he said, "My friend, we died already before we started this trip." So, but it was just very, very difficult time. And Mary Slessor prayed as well, said, "Lord, the task is impossible, but not for you. So will you lead me and will you guide me?" And that's exactly what happened. David Livingstone, you know, he was called the best friend Africa ever had. But with Mary Slessor working in Africa, then the day came that Africa became silent, and the mother of Africa had died. Mary Slessor made such an impact of missions. They, together with David Livingstone, they have inspired hundreds of missionaries to come to Africa. Absolutely amazing. I think after that we had Peter Cameron. He worked in Africa. He was a missionary, but he was such a failure, so he went back home. But standing at the grave of David Livingstone, he knew that he had to come back. And he started the African Inland Mission. Today they have got over 800 missionaries working in Africa, I think in 14 countries. They built hospitals, clinics, schools, and about 80% of hospitals and clinics, they have been started by schools, by mission, by churches, by Christians who went over there. So Africa has got an enormous rich influence of Christianity. You had C.T. Studd as well. He said, you only have one life, it won't last long, but all what is done for Jesus, that will last. And so many missionaries, Christians, they have come to Africa, and the changes what they made was just incredible. And actually today the reason, the result of the labor was really that today that we have 680 million people, Christians in Africa, who identify themselves as a Christian. It's absolutely amazing. But what was it? What was the secret? Why did they go the whole time? Why did they continue? And that was that was the motto. That was what I read. This from Matthew 11. That this verse, that was their motto. That come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. And they had the struggles, they had the problems, the diseases, everything. And they did indeed, they labored and they were heavy laden. But they knew the secret. That Jesus says that I will give you rest. And take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And they knew that he was gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. But they learned from Jesus. And each one of us, we can do the same thing. We can learn from him. So what did they learn? They learned that, God had one son, and he made him a missionary. And a missionary who had compassion, who cared for the people, and they wanted to be like him. That's why they went out. That's why they managed to go through all those problems they faced. So they knew about Jesus. They also learned to be courageous. Well, you have to be when you get to Africa. It's a different country. There's a lot of challenges they have, but they learn to be courageous. And the other thing what they learned was to learn the power of prayer. It was prayer what made things possible. It's incredible. And afterwards you had Andrew Murray in South Africa, who was actually got used to be to have a tremendous revival in Africa. And he said as well that faith expect what is above expectations. And those people, they knew it. They knew the secret of prayer. Even if I think Amy Carmichael said, when somebody asks her, what can you learn on the mission field? And she said, you learn to die of self. Now we are for many years now in Africa as well. We learned a lot. I think it's a privilege to be in Africa. I think we are there at the right time, in the right place. It's just a few years ago that we started with this project of Jesus Messiah. So the result of all those missionaries who actually have gone before us is that today we have really a tremendous amount of Christians in Africa. And according to Operation World, this 680 million will double by the year 2050, so less than 25 years. This will double to over 1.3 billion people in Africa. So that brings some challenges as well for the church. We recognize that. So for the church, we're gonna need lots of training. We need lots of literature. We're gonna need Bibles. We need, we can't have Christians without a Bible. So the Bibles is so important. There are the other challenge is that they somehow, with the church to grow, it is the time of divisions is just finished. It is over. The time to build your own kingdom, it's finished. And it is somehow, when you don't care who gets the credit, you can achieve a lot. But they say that by 2050, the 1.3 billion Christians in Africa is going to be more than Europe and America together. And somehow I can see it for what we do. We distribute the Jesus Messiah book. We have students, we've got volunteers from Europe, from America. We always go with teams, we go to those schools. And they always say, hey, but we can't do that in our country. I mean, it's just impossible. But in Africa it is possible. There is enormous hunger for the gospel. I remember that in 1983, when I first went to Africa, everybody was at war. South Africa, Namibia, Angola, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, they're all at war. But now it is very quiet. And the people say, hey, you need to come with the gospel to us so that our country can heal. We're going to need lots of training as well, training for the youth, about sex, sexuality, relationships, marriage. Polygamy has always been a problem in Africa as well. It has to stop sometimes. It is just with training. I just remember we went to a program somewhere in Swaziland. I had 4 students with me, 4 ladies. They were sitting with me in the car, and we got stopped by the police. And I opened my window, and so this policeman, he looked inside, saw those 4 ladies, and now, which one shall be mine, And I said, but you are married already. He said, yes, but you need more than one wife, surely, I said, I said, when God created the woman, he actually took a rib from the man, and so he created this woman, because it's not good for the man to be alone. So, and I said, now, if you take more women, I said, you don't have any ribs left. Be just on the flat on the floor. You actually got very cross, but of course it's very true as well. It is, you can tell lots of stories, but somehow there is a lot of training needed, especially for the young people, and we notice that. We do lots of training, and somehow things are changing. You have got girls now, they say hey, this is my body, and no one's going to touch it but one, and the one who puts a ring on my finger. And you've got guys that take responsibility. So there's a lot of things are happening in Africa. It's going to be the challenge. But somehow, and we noticed with Jesus Messiah, we started that in Swaziland, and it was actually such a success that we go to every school, we go to every student, every teacher. They get this book, and it is just changing the country. What we do as well, we give a book, the lesson book of Jesus Messiah. The schools, the teachers, they are using that. So Jesus Messiah is the textbook for Swaziland. And somebody says, show me the textbook and I can tell you what you can expect in the future. So things are changing the whole time. We just wonder from how can you be part of this? Because I can tell you all the stories, but I mean, what good is it for you? So, and somebody said, well, yeah, you can pray for Africa. And it's true. And there is a prayer for Africa. There's a beautiful prayer. So when we go to the schools, at every school, when we do the presentation, when we are there, we always pray this prayer. And it is, God bless Africa. Guide her leaders. Guard her children. And give them your peace. In Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, wow. And, but maybe there's something else as well, but you don't know, because we are here together. Somebody said to me as well that it's always good to pray from, Lord, surprise me. Give me a surprise today. Surprise me today. And and you never know, because we are here and maybe the Lord is going to surprise us. Maybe something is going to happen even this morning. And maybe, it may well just be that somehow a new friend for Africa is going to raise up from this church. And maybe a new mother of Africa. And we're going to need them. We're going to need people who are willing to go out. And and it's very easy. We actually recently, we often get groups from South Africa, many from South Africa, but also from Europe to come to our place. And last year we had a group from Holland who came, 14 people. But you know what they did? It was from one church, and from each church, each one of those persons who came, they had somebody, one or more people, to pray for them. So they were surrounded by prayer. The church got involved because they were all come forward. They all received a blessing from the church, and off they went. And on a daily basis, they kept up to date, because you can do that these days. Time of David Livingstone, they couldn't do that, but now you can. And the excitement in the church, that was just incredible. And they came, and they were brilliant. They just came and said, well, here I am, use me. There was no complaints, nothing was too much. They went to visit families over there. They helped with everything, even carrying wood. They came to the schools, and they had a wonderful time. They came back in the church was excited. That was just amazing. The stories that they tell, it was somehow contagious as well when they came back. So for the church to pray for Swaziland, they've been there, they've seen it, they smell it, they tasted it as well. And of course the church somehow got more and more involved in doing it. But we need your prayers. There is so much and maybe you think, there's somehow for the young people. Well, we have every year where we work in a place called Strangano. We've got a wonderful project. It's called Pasture Valley. Started off with a farm, and then they grew to, they started in children's home. From the children's home they went out into the community. At the moment they support about 600 kids in the community as well. They do so much, and every year you've got a couple, Mike and Gail, they're over 70 years old. They come to Africa, they come to Swaziland and say, hey, here we are, what can we do, where do you want us to go? And they are a blessing for everybody. So that we can go for anyone. There are people, even they go to Africa, they start a farm, and they just farm, and then they use that farm to train people, and there's so much you can learn. It's not that you're not going there because you are better than they are. You can learn so much from the Africans as well, from the church. It is so easy. The faith is so easy as well. When you sing the songs, they take it to heart. So there's enormous what we can learn. But the church is growing, and we need people to go there as well. And we say missionaries, but volunteers, you can just go there as well, and you can report back to the church. And I'm sure if somebody from here, from this church, go to Africa, I'm sure this church will pray and support them as well. And somehow that we can, the words what we just read, that they learn from Jesus. You will learn from Jesus, and you will know that he is gentle as well. It's to know Jesus. There are times, you have to expect it from him. I mean, he has to do it. He has to get you, there's nobody there to help you. You have to rely on him. But somehow it becomes a reality. This is so true. You can rely on him and to go together with him. You know, like Jesus said, take my yoke upon you. And it is somehow you go together. You can do it together, and it's amazing what God is doing. I see I'm over time. So, but anyway, may the Lord bless you. I hope and trust that we sang it already. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bless you indeed, and he will. Thanks. Thanks, Paul.
Put it.